in the end to the employees, especially the providing of information happens still in many companies paper-based. And the big dream we all have regarding the digital transformation is that this information flow I was just talking about, so generate the right information where they are happening, aggregate and analyze the information and provide it to the people. So this information flow should happen without any manual input, delivering the information and also experience that you can use for your decision in real time, and also provide it in a paperless way. And this is, so to say, the dream behind. And especially if we talk about how can data be used right now, for sure, everyone is talking, especially in the last 2 years, about AI models that are in use, that are discussed in all kinds of conferences and all kinds of fairs that we had over the last 2 years. And I know from many companies that they are hesitating very much with the situation because they see their own situation, they know how they are acting in their production plans right now, and they also hear on the other side how far AI applications are already. They hear which technologies are available. So I can understand why they have at the moment a lot of concerns comparing their own situation to the way how technologies are provided right now. And as I mentioned in the beginning, so we had established 7 years ago a maturity index that is used all over the world. It's used by different partners, and it's also been used by one unique software that delivers also for us the opportunity to have their benchmarks. So to have a very clear understanding where are companies right now. And if we talk about where are companies right now, then we see that a lot of companies are still in the starting phase of the digital transformation. For sure, most of them had already started with first initiatives, but nevertheless, they are still hesitating with establishing a connectivity between their IT system. They are hesitating to build a connectivity between their IT infrastructure and their processes. But nevertheless, we also see some frontrunners who are already in a level of visibility. So having data available in real time, providing data already in a paperless medium to the people, that this information can be used for decisions. But if you're now coming back to that AI topic, so analyzing the data, creating a transparency behind the data, understand what are the patterns behind. You could see here on this graph that no company has reached so far a level of transparency. For sure, we all know these use cases that are presenting at different conferences, at different fairs, but we normally look to an end-to-end perspective on companies. So take a look on the complete supply chain itself, take a look on all different ways how products are produced within the company. And there, coming from a holistic view, could see that no company had reached this level of transparency so far. So if you talk about use cases, so single steps in the production, it could happen that AI is already be in place, and that also it could work, but not from a complete holistic view itself. But what can we also read out of this graph itself? On the one side, we can bring the information to companies that also their competitors are not far away from them, so that it's still time to start with your own transformation. But on the other side, we also see that all companies are starting with these initiatives right now. So if you take a look, or if you look into the future, if you will take a look what or how will the situation be in 3 or 5 years, we will see that companies had invested in their transformation, that companies had increased their maturity level. So therefore, I can just bring the message over to all kind of companies: start with your transformation, and not start it by starting some pilots somewhere in the production. Just take a look which technology is available, but start with a strategic approach. So get an understanding what is really the need that you have so far, what are the steps you have to do first, what are the steps coming afterwards. And if you just take a final look here on this graph, if you talk about AI, if you talk about transparency, a lot of companies are not so far right now that they would be able to start with AI use cases right now. So it's very much on building the foundations itself. And especially if we talk about AI pilots that are introduced in companies, there's also a very relevant study just published a few weeks ago from the RAND research group that had made a survey to get an understanding how often does it happen that IT and especially AI projects failed. And for sure, we all know the stories, how often IT project had failed in the past. Introducing a new IT system that is not be ready in time, not be ready with the calculated cost. But now, if it comes into the AI projects, we see that much more projects are failing. And it's also the question, what are the reasons behind? One reason for sure is that companies are not ready to introduce AI and really get out a benefit. If you would like to get out a benefit, after finishing your AI projects, you should have reduced the number of labors in your production, or you should be able to produce more products with existing lines. But these benefits you rarely can see in the companies. And the reason is, as I mentioned before, in many cases, they are not ready. So it means data are not there, or the reliability on the data is not given. And another very important aspect is also the training, so that you are introducing a technology, and for sure the technology can work because it's already be developed, but the users, so your employees, the people standing on the line or sitting in the office and have to use these new technologies, they are not ready. So it means there is no clear strategy how to use AI in the future. There's no really an implementation process given by the leadership. And it also happens that the skills are not there. So people do not know how to use this technology. There would be some employees who will have the skills and will have the motivation to go deeper into the topic, but there would also be the majority who would say very fast, I don't understand it, I don't get out the results, so I do it in the same way how I had done it in the last 10 or 20 years. And it would be important if a company would like to start with AI topics itself, that they also do it in a very structured way. So it means take a look if they are ready, and also take a look that the employees are able to use this technology itself. And this also will bring us to the agenda of today. So we have 3 external speakers here. We would like to start right now with Tony Meruni. He is from the Digital Explorer, and he would like to talk what is digital transformation and why it matters. And from my perspective, a very brilliant topic, how to start this conference. So I would like to hand over right now to Tony. The stage is yours. So please share your screen and also introduce yourself.
Thanks, Sebastian. Are you going to take your slides there? That's perfect. Yeah, let me see now. Okay. Now you can see my slides okay, yeah?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. So yeah, Tony Maroney, I'm based in Dublin, Ireland, but I work all over the world. I do a lot of work on digital transformation. And I'm going to be controversial to start with, and I'm going to say, one of the biggest problems with digital transformation is the word digital, because it creates a connotation that this is all about technology. And I'm going to argue actually this is around transformation, and therefore it's around mindset and culture and all those other things which actually enable success in organizations. So if you can bear with me, I will unpack that. So undoubtedly, if we put it in context, and Sebastian touched on some of this, we are in a VUCA environment. So you've all heard of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And there's no doubt the rate of change is just phenomenal. Particularly you think about politics, it changes every day at the moment. But there's just so much change happening in the world. And that has a fundamental impact in how we think about our business, but also how our customers think about how they want to live their lives and do things. And in parallel, the rate of technology change is just exponential. So every day there are new technologies, or there are technologies built on technologies that bring new use cases, etc. So we're in this constant flow of change and transformation. And why that matters is because if we think of our organizations where, they're set up on military style command and control basis, where, the world is very predictable, and we don't have to worry too much. We can see who our competitors are, and we can plan 3-5 years in advance. Well, that's all gone now, because we don't know who our competitors are. We don't know what the world will look like tomorrow. So our linear way of thinking, it no longer applies. We now need to be much more dynamic in terms of how we think about the world and what that means for our organizations. And when we think about the world of digital, there's 8.2 billion people in the world, give or take. There's more mobile phones in the world than there are people. And 5.6 billion people plus are on the internet, mostly on their mobile phones, and 5.3 billion of them are on social media. So as an organization, when you think about, well, where is the market? Well, this is the market. This is the biggest market in the world. If there's 5 billion plus people in a digital world, well, what other market would you want to be in? That doesn't mean that everything is digital and everything has to be digital, but it does give you a very strong sense of, well, where the customers are. And if you think about your own life, I used to get these emails from Microsoft to tell me how many hours I spent online the previous week. They don't send them anymore because I think people were starting to realize they're spending too much time online. And the average time that we spend online is something like 20 hours a week, but actually it's much more extreme than that. And I challenge any one of you to think about how much time you spend using digital tools, technology, and you would be quite surprised. And one of the things that has happened is that there are brands like Netflix and Uber and brands that you are familiar with. And what they have done is they have totally redefined our expectation of customer experience. So I buy all my books on Amazon. Why? It's one-click purchase. I see the book, I click it, it's on my iPad. 2 seconds later, I don't have to take out a credit card, nothing. It's all done. Uber didn't turn around and say, well, we could put a debit card in the back of a taxi. They said, no, what we need to do is, well, what are all the pain points? So, customers, they can't find a car. If they're female, they're not sure who the driver is. They may not have cash. They may want receipts. They may want to know what time they'll get there. We'll create a whole experience in an app and, match people who have cars with people who need a lift. And the rest is history. And the same with the likes of Netflix, where they looked at what is happening and they sort of said, well, if people are getting more and more connected, well, why would physical DVDs be the future? Surely it's streaming. And again, the rest is history. So they looked at what the expectations of customers are. And this is really important because I'm going to argue that we do not transform because of technology. We transform because we want to be able to meet our customers' needs today, tomorrow, and into the future. So when I go into organizations, I invariably ask, is your organization doing digital transformation? You're all nodding, yes, we're all doing digital transformation. Which is great. And look, every organization says they're doing digital transformation. But in reality, most organizations are not doing digital transformation. I paused for a second. Did you notice that? The reality is they're not. Because I asked another question. I said, okay, have you clearly defined what you mean by digital transformation? And you get a lot of shuffling and silences. Because organizations have not defined what they mean by digital transformation. Now, I'm always amused by this one because if you say you're doing something, but you haven't defined what it is you're doing, how do you know you're doing it? And how do you know you're doing it well? So it's easy to say we're doing digital transformation. Yeah, but what do you mean by it? And if you don't know the answer to these questions, Does everyone in your organization know what it means? And why does this matter? Because I go into organizations and let's say it's the board or the exec team or a senior management team, and let's say there's 10 people. I'll ask, what does digital transformation mean? I'll do it on a Mentimeter or whatever, let them answer online. I'll get 26 answers from 10 people. Now, if the people at the top of the organization have 26 answers as to what it means, when you drop down a level, how many more answers do we have? Let's say there's 40 people in the next level. Well, now you got 100 plus more answers, and then you drop down more levels. So in organizations, we have hundreds of different meanings for what digital transformation is. And that is a problem. So if people don't know what it means, well, it's hard to know whether they think they're doing a good job, whether they know what they're supposed to be doing. And they definitely don't know what's expected of them if they don't know. Nor do they understand how it impacts all their stakeholders. So how does it impact the customer? How does it impact them, right, as a key stakeholder? Because I guarantee you what happens all over the world is, executives stand up and say, we're doing digital transformation, and here's all the rational reasons. And later that day, people, when they're on the way home, they start thinking about, well, what does this mean for me and for my colleagues and my team and my department? Or is this management really talking about using technology to get rid of us? So if they don't understand why, and they don't understand the how, and the how includes them, right, why would they get involved in this and why would they support it? And the reality in most organizations is, digital transformation gets thwarted from within, not from the outside. So we need to invest in our people so they understand what it is we're trying to do, and importantly, how we're going to do it and what role they have in that. But what happens in most organizations, they rush straight to what? So let's get some technology, let's get some AI, let's get CRM systems. That would be great. But actually, to Sebastian's point, we don't use data. So what difference would a CRM system have? It's just a piece of technology that sits there that no one engages in. So we need to get this right. And one of our problems is that, we use words in a unconsidered way or ill-considered. So I'm in meetings where, people are talking about change management. They're talking about innovation, continuous improvement, digitization, digitalization, digital transformation. And these words have been used interchangeably, which I always find very interesting because while they're all related, of course, they're not all the same thing. But if we don't call this out, well, how is anyone to know the difference? So if I just focus in on the digital terms for a moment, so digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. And it's pervasive. All over organizations are using these terms. And the reality is, look, you probably need to do all of them, but you need to be sure what you mean by all of them. Right? You can't just say, well, we're doing digital transformation, but actually really what we're talking about is digitization. And let me explain what I mean by these terms. So, digitization is, doing the same things, but, doing them in a digital format. So we used to use paper forms, now we use digital forms. Well, the job hasn't changed, right? Working from home was not digital transformation, despite all of the headlines about digital transformation on the back of COVID, because the job didn't change. They still did the same work. It just did it from a different location. So digitization is really just applying a digital veneer to what we do today. Digitalization is about creating new value. And a simple way to think about this is if you think about Uber. Uber started by bringing people around, but then they started to realize, well, we could bring food, we could bring prescriptions, we could bring drugs, we could bring whatever people need. So the same business model now is creating a whole new stream of value in different areas. And then you have digital transformation, which is around, well, what will the world look like in 3-5 years' time? And what might that mean for our organization if we want to be able to compete? So we're trying to figure out, well, strategically, how do we reinvent our business so that we're fit for purpose? So in many respects, we're talking about the past, the present, and the future. And as I said, we probably need to do all three, but let's be clear about what it is we mean by them and not assume that, one term means all. I love this quote from George Westerman, who says, digital transformation, when it's done right, it's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. But when it's done wrong, all you have is a really fast caterpillar. And look, what he's getting at is that if we just digitize everything we do today, and we haven't stopped to ask, well, actually, does this create a good experience for our customers? Does this create value? Is this the right thing that we should be doing? All we've done is become more efficient at doing what's not required. Right? So he's really saying is you need to think about your organization, sort of say, Well, if we're doing digital transformation, we are reinventing. We're not just doing the same thing. Now, look, there are people who argue that the DNA of a caterpillar means they automatically become a butterfly, but you get the point. It's a transformation. Now, a term I use to describe it at times is the proactive adaptations a business makes to be relevant and competitive in a digitalized world. So where I'm coming from on this is, adaptation, and Sebastian touched on adaptation. Darwin said it wasn't the strongest or the brightest that survived. It was those that adapted best survive. And organizations need to adapt because, when we were set up, when we started out, we were very clear on our purpose and we knew what we were trying to do. But as time goes by, we become bigger, we become more, silo driven, we become more detached from our customers. And if we don't evolve, well, someone is going to disrupt us. It's also saying that, look, let's recognize this as a digitalized world. Like if there's, 5.6 billion people online in some shape or form, it is a very digital world. But the key points there is relevant and competitive. So we do not transform because of technology, period. We transform because we want to be relevant to our customers and we want to be competitive for our customers. Because if we're not relevant and we're not competitive, well, why would they deal with us? So that means we need to understand how we're going to give them a great experience so that they love us and they want to do more business with us, not that they find us, terribly inefficient, unwilling to deal with their needs. So it is about adapting and being relevant and competitive. So what are some of the challenges? Well, there's plenty of challenges. I know we'll come back to this later, but, technology changes very quickly. I mean, we only have to look, if we think about, generative AI, 2.5 years ago, we never talked about generative AI. Now it's, everyone's talking about generative AI. So technology changes very quickly. Organizations change slowly. Because, when we get set up in a routine, we don't like to change. That's the reality. There's a way we do things and we like to keep doing it that way. And that's because our culture gets embedded. And this is why I would argue that, digital transformation is a mindset, because if we don't think differently about the business, we won't act differently in the business. And if we don't act differently in the business, everything stays the same. But if we're thinking differently and we're starting to do things differently, we're now starting to bring about new ways of doing things. And over time, the culture will change. Another challenge is silo thinking. So I know there are no silos in any of your organizations, but there's a lot of organizations I've worked with, and there are plenty of silos. And you only have to look at, LinkedIn jobs or whatever, and it's, head of digital channels, head of digital sales, head of digital products, whatever it might be. And here's the big flaw in all that, because we're now creating an internal differentiation between digital and non-digital. And really, at the end of the day, does the customer care about that? The customer doesn't care. The customer is thinking about, I'm trying to do something and I want it to be a great experience. And you guys are talking about organizational structures, nothing to do with me. So what we need to be thinking about is, well, actually, digital is pervasive. It cuts across absolutely everything. So rather than thinking about digital as something that's over there, we need to be thinking about digital is just like electricity. It's part of how we run the organization. It is something that we do naturally. It's not something that's alien to us. And that doesn't mean everything is digital, because some of our customers don't want digital things, or they maybe want a hybrid combination of things. One of the other big issues I see is no ownership. So I can go into an organization and I say, well, great, so who's responsible for digital transformation? And they'll say, well, that's Sebastian. And I say, that's great. I said, so does he have the budget and mandate to transform the organization? And invariably they say, no, but he's working on these projects. I said, oh, so he's not responsible for digital transformation. He's responsible for some digital projects. And, we get this uncomfortable moment where they realize, actually, yeah, the real problem is the organization doesn't own digital transformation. And I would argue that it needs to be owned at the top. So the top leadership need to be absolutely united in terms of why they need to transform and how they need to transform. And then they need to work with the rest of the organization once everyone's on the one page and figure out, well, how do we get there and what are the things we need to do? And that comes from the bottom up, because in today's world, the business leaders cannot be expected to have all the answers. Because if you think of the average age of an executive or the average age of a board member, right, well, actually, the internet didn't exist when they were at college. They probably didn't have a smartphone or at college. They are not digital natives and they're trying to, understand this world. So why wouldn't they learn from all of the digital natives and the people who are comfortable in the organization? But it needs to be more than that. It needs to be everyone. Because back to my point earlier in terms of, well, what does digital transformation mean? Well, if there's confusion at the executive level or the board level, imagine the confusion at middle management level, and they're the people that everyone else are talking to. So if you don't sort this out in terms of ownership and understanding, you have a real problem. Another problem is, not joined up. So organizations fall into the fallacy that we have a great website or a great mobile app. Yeah, but the minute the person deals with the real organization, it all falls over. And again, it's back to, well, we're thinking, in silos. Let's stop thinking in silos. Our purpose is to serve our customers. What we need to understand is, well, what does that mean end to end? What does great experience look like? And how do we design for that? So I'm going to say, look, the real issue here is digital is not the problem because, at the end of the day, most digital technologies are just that. They're just technologies. Most of them are not clever. And transformation is the issue. And therefore, it is a leadership challenge. It's not a technology problem because the technology will do whatever you tell it to do. If the organization is not up for transformation, it just won't happen. Therefore, it is a leadership issue. And critically within this, and Steve Jobs called it out right when he said, look, you got to start with the customer experience and work back to the technology. You can't start with the technology because otherwise you're making technology or you're doing something with technology and you're trying to force it on people. At the end of the day, the digital technology is simply an enabler. And as I said earlier, we don't transform because of it, but we may use it to accelerate our vision. So we're clear on where we need to be. We know how we want to get there. And in that context, we might say, actually, yeah, there are some technologies that could really help us. But now we know why, and we have a context for why those technologies will do what we want them to do, as opposed to, well, let's land in the technology and hope for the best. So I'm a big believer in that, every day is a learning day because, so much is happening out there. And I love this phrase from John Kabat-Zinn, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And really in our context, what this means is that, look, we can't stop all the disruption that is happening in the world, be technology, environmental, political, all those type of things that impact our business. But what we can do is we can educate ourselves so that we understand and can make sense of them for ourselves and our people. And if we can understand and make sense of them, well, then we can start to figure out, well, how would we need to respond to make sure that we remain competitive in the future? And that means we need to update our skills, and that means we need to be curious. So that's what I was going to say for now. I'm sure we will have plenty of questions later, but that's the starter.
Good. Thank you very much, Tony. Yes, indeed. The questions from the audience we are taking at the end of this complete session itself. But from my side, I have even a question right now. So what would be, if you are talking with a company, what would be the right way you would advise them?
Oh, look, you have to start with, the purpose of the organization. Why does it exist? What's your vision for the future? And what would that mean in terms of, being great for your customers? And if you can work from back from that, well, then you can see, well, actually, we don't do that today. So we need to change. How are we going to change? Well, we would need to do the following things. How would we underpin that? Well, actually, there are certain things we could do, be it, technology, process, people, whatever, that will help us get there. But we know why we're doing it. Because I've been in organizations. I was working with one organization and, they said to me, oh, yeah, well, we're getting a Salesforce. And I said, well, that's great. What's that going to do for you? And they said, well, it's going to give us loads more information. And I said, but you have loads of information today, but you don't use any of it. So what's going to be different? And they couldn't answer the question because their mindset was, oh, we'll just buy technology. That'll solve the problem. Well, actually, it doesn't. It's just another technology that's now sitting there joining the rest of the legacy because they never set out to transform. And that's one of the big challenges. We can't just, flick the switch and assume that technology will transform an organization. Far from that, what it actually does, it probably, has your people, in fear, wondering what's really going on, and they boycott it.
Great. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. I also know the exact same challenges that companies are just looking on technologies very well, also with my own experience. Now it's time also to move forward to our second presentator. I would like to call Tariq Munir here on that virtual stage. He's located in Australia, so already quite late in the evening for him, but we are very glad to have him here. He's from FinSpear, also one of the founders there, and he will talk today about how to redesign the digital transformation. Tariq, stage is yours.
Thank you, Sebastian, and such an insightful session, Tony. Thank you so much for that. I'll just share my screen, and please let me know when you can see this.
Yes, we can see it right now.
Okay, awesome. Great. So my name is Tariq Munir, and I am a digital transformation advisor, a speaker, and author of an upcoming book, Reimagine Finance, which is also about digital transformation, specifically focused on CFOs and finance leadership teams. Today, what I'm talking about, how do we design a digital transformation, right? So let's get into it. In 2014, a global automobile manufacturer embarked on a digital transformation journey by setting up a new segment called smart mobility. Now, the objective was to redesign the business model and develop digitally enabled cars with smart mobility solutions. A separate state-of-the-art facility was set up away from day-to-day operations. And naturally, millions of dollars were poured in from investing in best-in-class talent to the most cutting-edge technologies. However, the journey was not as smooth as they expected it to be. The project virtually had no ROI, and in 2017 alone, in just 3 years' time, that segment reported a loss of $300 million, a decline in its share price, and reportedly the stepping down of the CEO at that time. Now, before we go into the reasons behind why that segment didn't work, it pains me a little bit to say that the corporate history is filled with such examples. Sebastian and Tony both referred to it very eloquently. Organizations, despite having access to the best-in-class talent and resources and funding, are falling short of their ambitions. In fact, think tank RAND issued a report a couple of months ago in which they highlighted that 80% of AI initiatives are still failing to achieve their objectives. And if you're not still convinced, hear this. In past 80 years, the average tenure of an S&P 500 company in the US has decreased from 67 years to just over 15 years. And we are talking about big organizations here, right? So clearly innovation, funding, or capital is not a problem, or digital tech is not the problem. So what is that common denominator that is causing all these failures, including the one we talked about? The problem lies in one word, and that is where I would resonate to what Tony also mentioned, digital. We have been incorrectly equating digital with technology. However, in the context of digital transformation, digital means change. And what is change? Change is a mindset. As George Bernard Shaw once said, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. In other words, it is time for us to reimagine what digital is all about. And in the next 16 to 18 minutes, I will give you 3 strategies, 3 tips to take away with you today, so you can design an intentional digital transformation in a way that we do not end up on that wrong side of the 80% statistics. Now, a majority of digital transformation failures happen due to a lack of clarity in direction. Where do we begin and where are we headed towards? So it is imperative to start with a very clear why. Why is there a business need to transform, and what AI or any other technology got to do with it? You must be very specific what the future looks like with digital and AI in the equation. In other words, paint a vivid picture of the future, something that moves the organization. That should be your call to arms, or in other words, that is your digital vision. It determines that at the end of the day, why does it all matter? Why anyone in your organization should care to transform. So think about those big impactful problems, this reinvention of business models that you are trying to achieve, to rally the support behind. And from a support point of view, in order for your digital vision or your statements not to end up as a poster on a wall, you must align your C-suite, your top team. Form a coalition of the like-minded people and create a sense of urgency to transform and demonstrate why the cost of inaction is too big to be ignored. The global technology company Cisco and their 50-50-20 vision is a great example of what I just explained. When they faced a market shift to redesign business model in favor of recurring revenues instead of the one-time hardware sales, they painted a vivid picture of the future through this vision, which effectively meant by year 2020, 50% of the revenue will come from software and instead of hardware, and 50% from recurring sources. Now, this was their rallying call, which was clear, which would put everyone behind it. And it didn't mean just an ambition that we will just get there somehow. Everyone in the organization, from R&D to marketing and sales, needed to join hands to achieve this target. This is how you start with a why. This is how you start to create an impactful and compelling vision. Now, once you have this North Star guiding your transformation, the next step is to roll up your sleeves and design the transformation. Now, firms often fall in the trap of going all in and end up committing more resources than are required, similar to what we discussed during our digital mobility unit example. And that is the recipe for failure. So we must design with purpose. Now, what do we mean by that? Anything we do in digital transformation needs to be tied to a specific business need. As Tony and Sebastian was also referring to, that we cannot do technology for the sake of technology. We cannot call digitization digital transformation. That is technology for the sake of technology. Anything we are doing must be solving a business problem or creating a new avenue of growth for us. All the transformations I have led or studied have three common principles or three common patterns that arise. Number one, you do not need to go all in. Instead, start small, identify quick wins. These are your 3 to 6 months projects, which are again tied to very specific business needs. Now, these quick wins are not the smallest possible projects in the shortest possible time. They are the smallest possible projects in the shortest possible time with the biggest impact. The impact the business need remains the core, remains the center of your transformation. Now, they play two very important roles. Number one, they help you build momentum, because rest of the organization can now see the actual benefits of transformation and digitalization, helping them do their job better. And it helps you get that executive support and buy-in, which we talked about in the previous principle. So start with small sprints, which are 3 to 6 months. And of course, depending upon your transformation journey, that your transformation roadmap. Now, to ensure that you have a sustained transformation, go a step further and co-create your digital roadmap and vision with your employees. Co-design your digital transformation, which will make them feel empowered and part of the transformation journey, as opposed to a top-down mandate, which rarely works. Yes, the importance of top being aligned and being behind transformation is the most important piece. But then we need to make sure that we are trickling it down and co-creating that transformation to bringing it up from the bottom up as well, so that the organization-wide buy-in is there for our rightly designed transformation. In other words, tap into the power of crowdsourcing. And I have personally used hackathons, digital ambassador programs, and AI design sprints, for example, or digital design sprints to solicit new ideas and lead successful transformation. And once you do that, the third important piece of this puzzle is communication. Sorry, somehow my clicker just decided to stop working. Now, relentlessly communicate in digital transformation. Apart from your, of course, your emails or the typical town halls, all hands meetings, and Slack channels, build purposeful digital communities that come together and solve specific business problems. Now, you have to be very, very careful in these digital communities because there is a risk of disengagement in these communities as well. We end up creating too many communities, and then people do not end up communicating with each other. It is important to again define a purpose of that community. For example, General Electric, they used a community to solve 500 customer issues. It was an analytics driven community which solved 500 customer issues in just 1 year, which created a $1 million worth of cost avoidance. So this is how powerful our digital community can be, provided it has a clear purpose associated with it. Okay, now we have done it all. We are clear with our purpose. We are clear. We have a North Star. We are purpose driven, and we are all super excited. But unfortunately, that is not enough to guarantee your success. I'm sorry, I know it is not easy, and no one said that it will be, right? So how do we create success and how do we win? So we start with a why, we design with purpose, but we only win with a mindset. And there are three things again that I will give you to take away with you today to build a mindset, to build a winning mindset that will help you succeed in digital transformation. First of all, we all need to build a digital mindset. In this VUCA world Tony referred to, in this ever-changing world around us, we cannot stand still. We must enhance our digital literacy and we must elevate our digital IQ. Now, you might be wondering, what is digital mindset? It is simply how well you are able to connect the output of data, algorithms, and machines to solve a business problem. That is it. That is all about digital mindset, that how you can connect the two. And for that, it is easier said than done. For that to happen, you must lead from the front and demonstrate a continuous learning mindset, a growth mindset. Now, unfortunately, continuous learning is something of a word that is thrown around mercilessly these days, and I'm also a culprit of that. Continuous learning is not about how many trainings I have done or how many certificates I have earned. It is about how willing I am to challenge my very own assumptions in the light of new knowledge. That is the toughest part. Humility is the first step to upskilling. We must listen to learn and be ready to challenge our very own assumptions, or in other words, we should be ready to unlearn what we have learned so far. And it's not easy. It's not easy. No, by no means it's easy. Alvin Toffler, it is associated with Alvin Toffler that he said, the illiterate of 21st century are not going to be the ones who cannot read or write. They are going to be the ones who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Secondly, do not just think of technology. And I think we have probably throughout the webinar so far, we have made this very clear that, when you're talking about digital transformation, do not just think about technology. Think about your ways of working, your operating model. Organizations of today are a complex interplay of data, networks, and algorithms. They are not just input-output processes. So you must start off your digital transformation with a process excellence mindset. When we talk about fundamentally re-architecting our operating models, yes, that's a big task. But if you have a process excellence mindset and you, at the lowest level, a firm is represented or your work is represented by different workflows, how do you simplify those workflows? Automating a complex process will only increase the complexity. So we must simplify, and then try to simplify a bit more. Automation will become in itself the product of that that process excellence, the product of that mindset where we are trying to change our ways of working to do things in a better way. For example, and you can use even AI for that today, right? So there are AI-driven process optimization like process mining, which in my own case, I used to eliminate 30% of process waste from an order to cash process, for example, and that too within a week's time. So you can combine the power of the mindset with your technology to make sure that you are building your right to succeed. And last but not the least is having an experimentation mindset. Now, experimentation is the essence of digital transformation. Now, that also does not mean that opening up wallets and just mindlessly investing money. We need to run well thought out experiments and accept that one of the output of these experiments can be a failure. It is the acknowledgement of failure, it is the acceptance of failure, and then learning from those failures. It is better to fail in 3 months through quick iterations as opposed to realizing in 3 years' time that the investment we have done is of no use or what we were investing in is not required. And I have seen that happening. However, to experiment, you must build a psychologically safe space where people feel safe and comfortable to bring out their ideas and speak up without any fear of reprimand or any fear of being shot down. Remember that digital feeds on innovation, and innovation can only feed on ideas. And ideas will only come if people will feel safe in an environment to bring them out. As I said earlier, that yes, it is not easy. There are so many moving pieces, and literally there is no single framework or hack, unfortunately, that I can give you, because I'm of the view that there is none that exists, which will work in every scenario. Having said that, I'm an optimist who truly believes that the technology has a huge potential to create a prosperous and abundant future for all of us. But to do that, we need to reimagine how we view digital and what it can do for us. The earlier digital units or the earlier failures do not happen because there was any lack of new ideas. They just could not challenge the old ones. Remember that success does not mean investing in cutting edge technologies. It is about what 20th century author Robert Collier once said, is the sum of small efforts repeated. So please join me in building this resilience, this mindset shift at the end of the day, which will enable us to build a tech-enabled, digitally transformed humanistic future for ourselves, the places we work, and the lives we touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Also from my side, one question to you. I also know a lot of companies who would like to invest very fast in a technical solution because they see direct benefits. For example, if they connect a machine or if they introduce a new IT system. From your perspective, what are the arguments to say before starting with a technical innovation, let's first work on building a vision that is not bringing directly a value to companies?
Yeah, absolutely, Sebastian. And most of these things, when they start off with a big bang, and we feel like, this technology, AI, agentic AI, generative AI, let's somehow bring that technology in. Let's somehow use that technology to transform our operations. But as Tony also referred to earlier, and you also referred to that, what are we trying to transform? What are we trying to change? What is the end goal? What is the objective? Whatever the technology that we are bringing in, is it aligning with our business needs? Is it aligning with the business strategy? So it is imperative to first have a compelling and clear vision in order for us to make sure that we can rally people behind, we can rally the funding behind, in fact, to make sure that we are able to transform the function, we are able to digitally transform. And again, that needs to be coming from the top management. That is where the alignment needs to happen. A digital transformation cannot happen without a top down mandate. That is given, right? I mean, of course, we need to have a balance of bottom up and engage the team and everything. Everyone needs to be there, but the top team needs to align. And all the case studies, all the experience that I have seen, if the top team is not aligned, no matter what we do, the technologies only become like a nice to be done pilots, and then end up being in what we call a pilot purgatory, where they remain undead forever. So they're like, I mean, uh, those purgatories are filled with failed projects, or what we call digital zombies, because there was no alignment on the vision. So C-suite alignment or the executive alignment is most vital. And that is, again, we can influence to an extent, but that is something that executives need to realize as well. They need to understand, they need to educate themselves, they need to go out and start investing in their own development, and be ready to challenge their own assumptions as well, which is not easy, which is very hard, but that has to come from the inside. That they had to lead from the front, in order for them to have a clear vision.
Yeah.
Because no matter than what we do, I mean, it'll end up being a digital solution or a technology solution, as opposed to a transformation, true transformation.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Then I would like to go over to the next one. It's even our last presenter, but last and for sure not least. So I would like to introduce Mohammed Mahafda. He is working at the Infinitive PL, and he is located in Riyadh and will talk today about solving common digital challenges. I guess it fits very well to the topics we had discussed previously. So stage is yours, Mohammed, and I'm really looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian, and thanks for everyone here to be with you today for this opportunity. And it's a pleasure to be along with you guys, brilliant minds from different places, and today here with our audience. So let's get started. You're gonna to see some of the common themes, common words in my presentation and in my colleagues' presentation, and that would emphasize something that we came from different continents, from different places, and we all talk the same thing. So today I'm going to focus more in solving common digital challenge. That here, this just 1 second. Yes. So before we go to the subject, I would like just first give you a bit introduction about myself. I have over 18 years of experience. As Sebastian said, I'm based in Riyadh, but most of my time, but I've been in the region for a while, especially EMEA and Dubai and Yemen, Jordan, working on solving real digital transformations, strategies, and execution and delivery. I've been working on the digitization, then the digitalization, then lately now in a digital transformation era. So I led several transformation strategies from strategy to execution, national and sectorial wide. We work with C-level leaders also and to overcome resistance and how we gonna to support them during the journey. It's a journey, it's not like one project. And we had also working on delivering solutions, digital solutions, AI solutions that the execution likewise. And as well, also we use several models to assess. Maybe my colleagues here, like Tony and Tarek said, like we start with the why, and that's how the purpose, and starting with assessment. We need to know ourselves more. So I bring mindset of top consulting firms with practical, but also with hands-on experience. Okay, so grounding the problem in reality today. Definitely there's a problem, and definitely in order to solve a problem, we need to understand what is it, and we need to accept it. We need to embrace it in order to achieve what we are looking to achieve. Before going to that, I would just like to shed the light with you and give you a real life experience. While I was working with one of the consulting firm to develop a strategy, digital transformation strategy, And that was in Saudi Arabia, one of the government entities. And they told us, like, after we kind of finished the strategy and they saw the deliverables and output. And I appreciate their honesty, and actually. They told us that we tried for like 2 years to come up with digital strategy, but we couldn't. We had some, some trials here and there, but we couldn't reach to this stage in like 5 or 6 months. So definitely there was like a problem, but what was it really about? Like, was it about technology? I just like you guys to think about it here. Is it about budget? I believe now we reach to a stage we understand, no, it's about purpose, it's about people, it's about communication, it's about mindset. The transformation really, it's not about technology. It's about how people they look at it, how they react to it, how they embrace it and deal with it. So we need to define really why we doing a transformation, or why we gonna to use the digital in technology. So, as Tony said, that digital transformation is changing the way we're doing things using technology. So why we gonna to change things? That's we need to start with. I'm gonna to share with you today 5 digital challenges that you're gonna to face, because I faced it, and I believe my colleagues here faced it a lot. We come like maybe collectively 80 or 100 years of experience here, the 4 of us. So, and you're gonna to see that we say the same thing. So definitely that if you on the journey or not started, that you face these challenges. Definitely there's high cost. We're talking about millions. Here in, like, I'm talking from my perspective and from my experience. Digital projects usually come like with 10 to 50, sometimes 100 million riyal, Saudi riyal. We're talking about 30 million USD. So unfortunately, there is weak ROI, return on investment. We spend a lot, but we comes like it's not like what we expected. And 70% of digital projects globally, I'm not talking only for Saudi Arabia or Middle East, globally don't meet expected returns, whether like it's from a financial perspective, or from customer satisfaction perspective, or from operation efficiency perspective, from all perspectives. Honestly, like more than maybe it's this number does not meet that what we wanted. Okay. The second challenge you're going to face, and we faced a lot, is cultural resistance. And again, I want to focus more. It's not tech. It's a trust. Why are we doing this? And believe me, and honestly, like I see it, it's usually start at the top. Like, it's not like most of the time with the management or something. It's from the top. We started usually if the leadership really believes in it, if the leadership really using it, if the leadership really call for it, everything I believe is gonna to be like easy, because culture, it starts from the top. Culture usually start from the founders, from the CEOs. It's like how we gonna to work, how usually we communicate, how usually we interact with things, and it's coming from the top. Then the third challenge here is the talent gaps, and I'm talking about here from statistics here in Saudi Arabia, like 45% of small medium enterprises in KSA cite like lack of talent as their number of blocker, and it's all the talent related to digital change management, analysis, technologies like AI, or marketing, everything that related to these projects, related to this transformation. We need from every like kind of talent. Legacy systems, like recently I've worked with other than that government entity, and they had a lot of legacy systems, uh, and they want to just change it quickly, but it's not like this case. Usually, it's hard to like to go from database to data center, or to transfer that system that people get used on it for like the last 10, 15 years. So it's very risky to keep using legacy systems that been there for a long time, and depends on like outdated database or outdated technology, and you stay like just put your life on it. And last but not least, like the trust in data and security. Like usually people like, are we gonna to put all of our data there? There will be like some breaches, like hacking, or how are we gonna to secure this? Or no, I'm not gonna to use this. I'm not gonna to put all my life there. So this is one of the challenge actually, like people talking about. If we're going to cloud, no, I wanted to man my purposes like here the data. No, let's use ChatGPT or generative AI, but I'm gonna to use my data there. The shock, let's say, truth here, we've been putting our data since like maybe 10, 15 years there on the internet. Social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, all of it, our data are there. Google Maps, our data are there. They know where we're living, you know, and they know where the places we visited. So already our data is there. So, but we need to control it. We need definitely to put like a security on a place, like a governance on a place, definitely, but not like put it like as a challenge. These are like I call it like the symptoms, you know. So these are like service level symptoms, but it's not like the root causes. So what's really is going on here? The first one, maybe my colleagues Tony and Tariq talked about it. It's misalignment. It's like kind of these two functions working in different islands, and they're not aligned together. Tech and business strategy usually disconnect. And I saw like several occasions, like several examples, like we want to do digital transformation strategy. And as my colleague said here, digital is an enabler for business. It's about business most. But we found that the business strategy, even it was like old, it was not refreshed. They don't like aligned with the business strategy, but they want to go digital. So it's like disconnected. So one of the experience, one of the last in Infinite PL, we had like a function called digital partner. That digital partner is working with the business. He comes from the industry. I believe it was like logistics. He come from that industry. He knows the process. He knows the know-how, the challenge, everything, and he has like the technology perspective and knowledge. So they built together the business strategy where they're gonna to go, you know, using these technology. Then he moved to the technology department and they work together on it. And they put a roadmap, they put a plan rather than just going ad hoc. We want to change the CRM. Then the next year we want to go for ERP or we want to go for e-commerce. But no, we are now partnership. We need to build it together. So this is one like of the root causes, the misalignment. The second one, execution without ownership. Unfortunately, we see it a lot like that digital transformation or digital, it seems like as an IT project. And some of the organizations, when we work with them, that this work, this scope is realized with IT, not like with digital function department or DTO, digital transformation office, or with chief digital officer. It's more with IT. So the business, they said like, this is not our issue. This is IT issue. But and we are not like, no, if this project fails or this technology fails, it's the IT issue. Okay. But unfortunately, this is business. And I believe my colleagues here, Tony and Tariq, already said a lot about this. This is about how we change the business, why we're doing it, what's our purposes, and where we're going. Through technology, through latest technology, whether it's AI, whether it's blockchains, regardless the technology. We should be looking like diagnostic from the technology perspective. And again, it's not tech first thinking. Okay, if you automate the broken processes, it's gonna to stay there as broken. You know, it's gonna just to make like digital chaos. We need to think about how the operation, the business model, how is it connected to each other. The process is there. Today, I got one question. We have a community here in the Arab world, and one from the UAE said like, What is next after we automate all our services? Okay, so we have online services and everything, but they didn't think about, is this the process, the optimized one before we go to automated? Is this like we can change it before we put technology? They moved directly to the AI. We want to use AI now, but it's not like this case. It need to understand the operation, as Tariq said, the operating model, the business model. What is our value? Why are we doing this work here? Who are our customers and how we can bring the best for them, how to stay competitive. And the fourth one is lack of ecosystem engagement. We are not working in isolated islands here, you know. We all depends on each other. Whether it's as an employee, whether it's as a department or function, whether it's a company, whether it's a country, we all interconnected to each other, you know. So we're working in an ecosystem. So we need to ensure that we align with the ecosystem. Like here we have in Saudi Arabia Vision 2030, I believe most of you heard about it. It started from the top. Then it's like cascaded down to programs. Then they connected ministries together, programs that have a lot of several institutes and entities working together towards the same objectives and KPIs. So people now here, they moved like the last 10 years, they changed transformatively amazing because they believe it's not only one man show or one company or one department. You need to think like on your ecosystem. You need to have the local expertise support you there. And last but not least is the governance gap. We cannot work without a controlled governance, you know. If you just working like put a plan and put a strategy and let's hope, pray that it's gonna to work. No, it's not like this. You need to put a governance before the execution. We need to answer a lot of questions like who is doing what, when he's doing it, who's gonna to approve it, who's gonna to validate it, who's gonna to decide on these, what the things that we are trying and aiming to achieve, how we gonna to define success. Definition is very important things. We need to agree on acronyms, as like Tony mentioned at the beginning. It's all they connected to each other, but we need to differentiate between what is this and that, and what does mean digitalization or digitization or digital transformation, and how we gonna to agree on what we gonna to do first, and what if we gonna to put like what are the success criteria, what's our measurements, who's going to be engaged, who's going to decide, or what's if things gone wrong, how to escalate it and how to communicate it, and what's plan B if happened, and it's going to happen by the way because it's happened a lot. So we need to put our plan. So we need to put that governance protocols and the operating model there, and we put also definitely the processes, the policies, because people is going to ask what I should do, what I should do here, and how I'm going to do it, and what if happened, you know. So we need to put the answers before it's gonna to ask, otherwise it's gonna to be chaos and we're gonna to lose time, and time means money and effort, and the most important thing we said like people, we're gonna to lose the buy-in, we're gonna to lose the momentum here. If people like see that we spend few months or money and there's no results, they're not gonna to be with us, they're not gonna to support us. So what actually works and what can tools that deliver? Halloween, we're not talking about revolution here, but just let's put a system. Let's put a plan, a real plan, a governance protocol, a system. And you can use several tools there. Simple, but not like revolution. One of it's like we talk about change management. There are several frameworks, methodology, which give us the best practices that other people using it, and it works with them. Like here we have from ProSci, a professional entity for change management, a methodology called ADKAR, which is the acronym for A for awareness, that you need to build the awareness, why we're doing things, you know, what is in it for me, the desire, why we're gonna to change, and does it, do I need to change, and then the knowledge, what I need to do and how we're gonna to do it, you know. Then the ability, I'm able to do it, or I need something like training or like knowledge management, all of that. And finally, like the reinforcement, is things works fine, or we need to change things. We need to double check every why. So there's like a frameworks built in there, and we can use it. Like it's been used by Saudi here, National Water Company, NWC, to train 12,000 staff on it, and it works. I've been there before. I see it. Other tool that you can use, digital maturity assessment, and it's not like you can use. I would emphasize more in that you need to use at the beginning that to gauge where you are standing right now. What's my what are my maturity like? I'm looking for AI, or AI is not that far from me. I need data. Do I have data, or I need to build the digital first? Like I need to put things on systems and to be there, searchable, traceable, and it's clean. As the work of laws, process, everything connected, departments are connected, systems are connected. Before, like where I'm standing right now, and there are several frameworks that we can use and to support yourself. And first, you need to work like on your capability. What I'm capable to do. What is my capability as a department? What my like as an organization, as an entity, and build a roadmap. And build the roadmap first. Like don't start immediately for everything. Start phases. You can have like 90 days or 180 days or 1 year foundation building, like the foundation. Then we're gonna to check again, and it's like rehearse, like the agile how it works. You need to like build these on phases rather than just spend all the money or putting on the money there and invest on it, and suddenly it's not working and you lose everything. And ecosystem collaboration. I emphasize more in ecosystem, whether like you are in public sector or in private sector, you're working in an ecosystem. Whether you are a function of department, you need to work with your colleagues. So you need to build alliances there. And I believe Tariq emphasized this in how when designing digital transformation, you need to build an alliance, even it's team members with you, colleagues, entities, other entities. You need to build that ecosystem and collaborate with. So there's the three things that you can do this week, not next month, not next quarter, or this week. Okay, like I give you here like a prescription that you can do it. Run a self-assessment, and there are free tools that you can use to recognize where you are right now in terms of strategy, in terms of people or technology or data. And we've been working here with like Digital Government Authority in Saudi Arabia, DGA, for like they have a yearly assessment and maturity assessment for the whole government sector. So I believe that we need to do first where we stand right now, self-assessment. Then you can use like a pilot, one of the digital use cases, like pick a pain point and like could consider like a quick win and work on it to give them momentum, like to get people aligned with you and use it like a success story. And definitely need to upskill the people and yourself in terms of capability. Launch like a micro learning series, like a 4 series, 1 hour each. Plan for it. Okay. One topic, let's say, talk about digital mindset. One talk about cultural. One talk about change management. One talk about latest technology or use cases. And share it with your departments or with your organization. So these are cost light, quick to deploy, and confidence building for you. And a final thought I would like to leave it with you here, and a challenge. Digital transformation, as we said, and I believe now we talk about it, it's not about technology, it's about solving real problem and how it's with your mindset, with your capability and partnership. So we need to name it, like what is the digital challenge keep getting delays? Okay, which one? Own it, take responsibility for addressing it, then solve it. So NOS, if you would like to make it acronym, name that digital challenge and put ownership. You own it, okay? And let's begin with decisions how to solve it. What our strategy to make this happen? And finally, thank you for this opportunity today and for my colleagues. I believe let's build solutions together, and let's stop admiring the problem and let's start building the solutions and the future for our region and for our world. So these are my presentation and my contribution for today's workshop. It's really a pleasure to be with you here, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. As you know from the others, also one question from my side before we are starting then the Q&A. If you take a look on the last 2 or 3 years, what had changed in the transformation for manufacturing companies?
Okay. Thank you for this question, Sebastian. I believe now we moved quickly and in a high speed to the AI era. 2, 3 years, we didn't talk a lot about AI. We were just talking about digital twin, and we're talking about RPA, robotic process automation. We were talking about mostly like automating. And now in the last 2 years, it's not only for manufacturing, it's for everything. Like we need to use AI. We need to use AI, but AI is not ready to embrace now, as Sebastian said in the beginning of your presentation. We just still end like the maturity is like 2.4 something. So we are not ready there yet. We need to be there, but we need to work definitely on the cultural, on the why, answering the why, and how we're gonna to work there gradually to ensure that there's a quick win and we achieve our targets.
Good. Thank you very much. And now I would like to open the Q&A also for the audience. Are there some questions from the audience for the speakers? No questions? If not, then I would say thank you to all of our speakers. It was a pleasure for me to moderate this webinar. To all the audience, I hope you're getting a very good insight on different topics regarding the digital transformation. And for sure, and I think I can speak here for all of the speakers, if there are any further questions coming up on the next days, there are the contact details be available. You can reach us also via LinkedIn. So then feel free also to contact us.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks. And well done, guys. Great presentations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Ronnie. Thanks, Mohammed.
Bye.
Thanks, Sebastian. Thank you. Bye.